What if I told you that hidden in the sands of Sudan lies a kingdom older than the mighty pyramids of Egypt, a land where forgotten rulers carved their legacy into stone long before the pharaohs we know so well ever rose to power? When most people hear the word pyramid, they immediately think of Giza, the Great Pyramid, the Sphinx, and the wonders of ancient Egypt. But what if that is only part of the story? What if the true origins of pyramid building lie further south, along the banks of the Nile, in a place often ignored by history books? This is the story of Nubia and the ancient Kingdom of Kush, a civilization that flourished in what is today Sudan. Here, in the vast desert, stand hundreds of pyramids, smaller yet sharper, older yet mysterious, forgotten by time. Unlike Egypt's grand monuments visited by millions, the pyramids of Sudan remain shrouded in silence, their secrets buried beneath sand and centuries of neglect. Were these pyramids inspired by Egypt, or could it be the other way around? Could Sudan hold the key to a chapter of human history that challenges everything we think we know about ancient civilizations? In this documentary, we journey into the forgotten heart of Africa. We will uncover the history of the Kushite kings, explore the archaeological evidence, and confront the debates that still divide scholars. Were these pyramids simply royal tombs, or do they hint at a far older, deeper tradition of sacred geometry, one that predates Egypt itself? The story you're about to hear is not just about pyramids. It is about lost civilizations, human evolution, and the mysteries of our ancestors. Prepare to question everything you thought you knew about the cradle of civilization.
To understand the mystery of the Sudanese pyramids, we must step back thousands of years, into a time when the Nile River was not merely Egypt's lifeline, but the central artery of an entire region of civilizations. The story of the pyramids in Sudan is inseparable from the story of Nubia and the Kingdom of Kush, a rival, ally, and sometimes conqueror of Egypt. Archaeologists trace the beginnings of Nubian culture as far back as 8,000 years ago, when prehistoric humans settled along the fertile banks of the Nile. They fished its waters, hunted in its plains, and slowly began shaping a unique cultural identity distinct from, yet intertwined with, that of their northern neighbors. These people lived through the same climate shifts that influenced all of human evolution, from the lush green Sahara to its slow transformation into desert. Survival here demanded ingenuity, resilience, and the capacity to adapt, qualities that would define Kushite civilization for millennia. By 2500 BCE, while Egypt was erecting its massive pyramids at Giza, Nubia was already flourishing with trade routes rich in gold, ivory, incense, and exotic animals. The Egyptians themselves referred to Nubia as Ta Seti, the land of the bow, a name that spoke of its fearsome archers and proud warriors. But Nubia was not merely a resource for Egypt, it was a civilization in its own right, with kings, rituals, and monumental architecture. The true rise of pyramid building in Sudan, however, came later, during the Kingdom of Kush, which lasted from roughly 1070 BCE to 350 CE. At its height, this kingdom stretched from Sudan into Egypt, ruling as far north as the Mediterranean. The Kushite rulers are sometimes called the Black Pharaohs, a dynasty that even controlled Egypt itself during the 25th dynasty, uniting the Nile Valley under one throne. It was during this period that the Kushites began constructing their own pyramids. At sites like Meroë, Nuri, and El-Kurru, archaeologists have discovered over 200 pyramids, more than twice the number found in Egypt. Yet, these pyramids are strikingly different. Unlike Egypt's broad, massive pyramids, the Kushite versions are slender and steep-sided, often rising 20 to 30 meters, but with angles sharper than anything seen at Giza. Their entrances are usually marked by small chapels, adorned with inscriptions and carvings that reveal a blend of Egyptian influence and uniquely Nubian traditions. Inside, the tombs held kings, queens, and nobles, often buried with treasures, weapons, and goods meant for the afterlife. But here lies the puzzle. Why did the Kushites choose this form of burial monument? Did they inherit the idea from Egypt after centuries of contact, or was pyramid building already a local tradition that Egypt later perfected? Some scholars argue that Egypt was the teacher and Nubia the student. Yet others suggest a deeper, more controversial possibility that Egypt itself may have drawn inspiration from older, now lost practices of its southern neighbors. After all, history has shown us time and time again that the Nile flowed both ways, not just with water, but with ideas, culture, and power. Adding to the intrigue, archaeological evidence reveals that some of these Kushite pyramids may be older than their Egyptian counterparts. While Egypt's oldest pyramids, like that of Djoser at Saqqara, date to around 2700 BCE, certain structures in Nubia hint at experimentations in burial monuments that could predate them. Moreover, prehistoric rock art and early stone tumuli, burial mounds in Sudan, suggest a long-standing tradition of monumental burial, one that might have inspired pyramid building itself. Another layer of complexity comes from the mystery of Meroë, the great city of the Kushite kingdom. From roughly 800 BCE to 350 CE, Meroë was a thriving metropolis, so rich in iron smelting that the air was said to glow red with the fires of its furnaces. Here, dozens of pyramids rise from the desert sands, aligned with precision to the stars and built over generations of rulers. But when the city fell, its language, the Meroite script, died with it. To this day, scholars cannot fully decipher it. The pyramids of Meroë stand as silent guardians of a language, a culture, and a worldview that remains locked away from our understanding. For archaeologists, the pyramids of Sudan are not just tombs. They are windows into a forgotten civilization that forces us to rethink the story of human evolution, of lost civilizations, and of cultural exchange in the ancient world. Were the Kushites innovators in their own right, shaping the destiny of the Nile Valley? Or were they preservers of a tradition far older, one that reaches back into prehistory, when humans first began to imagine that stone could touch the heavens? And so, the sands of Sudan whisper a tantalizing possibility that the origins of pyramid building, one of humanity's greatest architectural achievements, may not belong solely to Egypt, but to a wider, older tradition that began in the heart of Africa itself.
Imagine standing in the desert of northern Sudan. The horizon ripples in the heat, dunes stretch endlessly, and then suddenly sharp triangles pierce the sky. Not the wide, massive pyramids of Giza, but tall, narrow structures rising like spears from the sand. These are the pyramids of Meroë, remnants of a kingdom that defied both time and Egypt itself. To truly grasp their mystery, we must journey back in time. Picture a Nubian hunter along the Nile thousands of years ago. He casts a net into the water, pulls up a gleaming fish, and behind him stand burial mounds, earthen tumuli where his ancestors rest. These mounds, built long before Egypt raised stone into geometric perfection, may hold the seed of an idea that death demands monument, that the soul requires a stairway to the heavens. As Nubian society evolved into kingdoms, these humble mounds became more elaborate. By the time of the Kushite kings, the tumuli had transformed into pyramids, sharp, slender, deliberately aligned with celestial bodies. Archaeologists have traced this transformation step by step, watching how burial customs reveal a civilization's values. Where Egypt emphasized eternal stability, carving colossal structures meant to last forever, Kush preferred elegance, speed, and symbolism. Its pyramids, though smaller, could be built faster, allowing many rulers to raise their own monuments within a single lifetime. One of the most striking examples is the pyramid field at Nuri, where King Taharqa, one of the most famous Kushite rulers, lies buried. Taharqa's reign stretched into Egypt itself. He ruled as pharaoh during the 25th dynasty, commanding lands from Sudan to the Mediterranean. Yet when he died, he chose not Giza, not Saqqara, but his homeland, Nubia. His pyramid rises sharply from the desert floor, a bold statement of cultural pride, as if declaring, the power of the Nile does not belong to Egypt alone. The pyramids of El-Kurru and Meroë tell a similar story. Walk among them, and you see not only kings, but also queens, buried with treasures, weapons, and offerings to guide them into the afterlife.
Some tomb walls depict gods recognizable from Egypt, Osiris, Isis, Anubis, but with distinctly Nubian features, blending local traditions with borrowed symbols. This fusion suggests something profound, that civilizations are not isolated, but rivers that meet and merge, creating new currents of belief. And yet, questions arise. Why did the Kushites adopt pyramid building so late compared to Egypt? Was it an act of emulation, a way to rival their northern neighbors? Or was it a reclamation, a return to older traditions that Egypt itself may have inherited from the south? Some archaeologists note that the earliest Nubian tombs predate Egypt's Old Kingdom, hinting that the very concept of monumental burial could have flowed northward rather than south. Consider, too, the precision of these Sudanese pyramids. Many are aligned to the rising and sighting of celestial bodies, echoing a universal human obsession with the stars. Just as prehistoric humans once carved constellations into caves, so too did the Kushites encode the cosmos into stone. To them, pyramids were not simply tombs. They were cosmic machines, bridges between earth and sky, matter and spirit. Archaeologists excavating at Meroë discovered fascinating details: small chapels at pyramid entrances where rituals were performed, burial chambers with painted walls, and artifacts ranging from bronze vessels to gold jewelry. These finds reveal a culture as sophisticated as Egypt, yet distinct. The Kushites had their own gods, their own hierarchies, their own vision of life and death. But what truly sets the Sudanese pyramids apart is their sheer number. With over 200 structures scattered across Nubia, they far outnumber Egypt's famous monuments. Imagine a desert skyline dotted with pyramids in every direction, a landscape that must have left ancient travelers awestruck. And yet today, they stand almost forgotten, ignored by mainstream history, buried in silence. There is tragedy here as well. In the 19th century, the Italian treasure hunter Giuseppe Ferlini destroyed more than 40 pyramids at Meroë in search of gold, dynamiting their tops and leaving scars that remain visible today. His plunder enriched European museums, but robbed the world of priceless archaeological knowledge. The destruction forces us to ask, how much of human history has already been erased by greed, and how many mysteries will never be solved? Still, what remains is extraordinary. The Sudanese pyramids speak of a people who understood power, death, and memory. They remind us that history is not a straight line leading to Egypt, Greece, and Rome, but a tangled web of civilizations, each shaping, borrowing, and sometimes surpassing the other. So when we look at these pyramids, we are not just seeing tombs. We are witnessing a dialogue across time, a contest of ideas, a rivalry of kingdoms, and perhaps even the echoes of a tradition older than both Egypt and Kush. Could it be that the true story of pyramids is not Egyptian, not Nubian, but human? A shared dream of prehistoric humans who gazed at the stars, imagined eternity, and decided to build their visions into stone.
The pyramids of Sudan stand as monuments to a forgotten age, but they also raise a profound question. Whose story do they tell? Are they a reflection of Egypt's influence, or evidence of a deeper African tradition that predates the pharaohs? For more than a century, scholars have debated this question. Traditional archaeology long placed Egypt at the center, portraying Nubia as a shadow kingdom, borrowing from its northern neighbor. Yet newer discoveries are challenging that narrative, forcing us to reconsider who truly influenced whom. Let's begin with the idea of cultural borrowing. Egypt's first true pyramid, the step pyramid of Hoser at Saqqara, dates to around 2700 BCE. By contrast, most Sudanese pyramids were built much later, beginning around 800 BCE. On this timeline, Egypt clearly comes first. Many Egyptologists argue that the Kushite pyramids are imitations, created by rulers who admired Egypt's power and sought to emulate its grandeur. The steep sides and smaller scale, they say, are adaptations, an architectural homage rather than an original invention. But this neat explanation begins to unravel when we look closer at the archaeological record. Long before Egypt's Old Kingdom, Nubian societies were already building elaborate tumuli, burial mounds that, in shape and purpose, resemble primitive pyramids. Could it be that Egypt drew inspiration from these earlier traditions? If so, the flow of influence may have been more circular than one-directional. This debate mirrors a larger struggle within archaeology: the tension between Eurocentric narratives that emphasize Egypt as the mother of civilization and Afrocentric perspectives that see Nubia and Sudan as equally foundational. When the Kingdom of Kush conquered Egypt in the 8th century BCE, establishing the 25th dynasty, it reversed centuries of cultural dominance. Suddenly, it was Nubian kings wearing the crowns of the pharaohs, carving hieroglyphs in temples as far north as Thebes. Does this suggest that Egypt's grandeur always overshadowed Nubia? Or that Nubia, in fact, was always its equal? And then there is the mystery of the Meroic script. Written on stelae, temple walls, and in the tombs themselves, this writing system remains only partially deciphered. Without full translation, we cannot know what the Kushite kings truly believed about their pyramids, their gods, or their afterlife. Did they see themselves as continuing an Egyptian tradition or reviving a far older one? The silence of this lost language keeps the debate alive. Opposing perspectives abound. Archaeologist Laszlo Torik insists that Nubian pyramids were symbolic rather than functional, built more for ritual than as monumental tombs. Others argue they were deliberately smaller to democratize access, allowing not just kings, but queens and nobles to build their own pyramids, spreading divine authority more broadly through society. But perhaps the most controversial hypothesis comes from scholars who argue that pyramid building across Africa and the world, whether in Sudan, Egypt, or even distant Mesoamerica, may stem from a universal human idea, rather than direct influence. The pyramid, after all, is the simplest way to stack stones skyward. Did prehistoric humans, gazing at the stars, independently arrive at the same solution? If so, the pyramids of Sudan are not copies, but local expressions of a global human instinct to honor the dead by reaching toward the heavens. But even if pyramid building is a universal idea, Sudan's monuments hold unique mysteries. At Meroë, excavations have revealed an astonishing detail. Many pyramids were not solitary, but clustered in groups. This suggests that they were part of a larger sacred landscape, designed as cosmic cities for the dead. Their alignments to solstices and stars hint at advanced astronomical knowledge, echoing the same precision that guided the pyramids of Giza. And then there are the unanswered questions. Why did pyramid building in Sudan suddenly stop around the 4th century CE, when the Kingdom of Kush fell? Was it the result of invasion, environmental collapse, or the rise of Christianity that replaced old traditions with new beliefs? What treasures, still buried beneath the sands, might rewrite everything we think we know? And yet fragments remain. Gold jewelry inscribed with protective symbols, alabaster jars that once held perfumes for the afterlife, statues of rulers with Nubian features, their faces serene even in death. These relics whisper of a culture both connected to and independent from Egypt, one that deserves recognition as a full civilization, not merely a footnote in Egypt's history. The pyramids of Sudan remind us that archaeology is not just about digging in the sand. It is about wrestling with memory, power, and identity. Whose story gets told? Whose monuments are remembered? And what truths lie waiting beneath the dunes, ready to challenge our assumptions? For every question answered, a dozen remain. Were the Kushites architects of their own destiny, or heirs to an even older, lost civilization? Were their pyramids born of rivalry, reverence, or something altogether different?
And perhaps most hauntingly, how much of human history has been buried forever, not forgotten because it never existed, but because we never looked in the right place.
When we stare at the silent pyramids of Sudan, we are not only gazing into the past, we are looking into a mirror that reflects our present and our future. These monuments are more than stone, they are lessons. Lessons about survival, about memory, and about what it truly means to be human. Think of the Kushites. For centuries, they lived in the shadow of Egypt, a superpower that seemed unstoppable. Yet they endured. They carved out their own identity, and when the time came, they rose, conquered Egypt, and sat on its throne. What does this tell us? That civilizations, no matter how overshadowed or forgotten, hold within them the power to rise again. It is a story of resilience, the same resilience that allowed prehistoric humans to survive ice ages, droughts, and disasters, carrying forward the torch of human evolution. And yet the fate of Kush also reminds us of fragility. The pyramids of Meroë once stood at the heart of a thriving kingdom, its iron furnaces blazing, its merchants trading across Africa and beyond. Today, those pyramids are isolated ruins, swallowed by desert sands. Civilizations can rise, but they can also vanish. For us, living in a world of global empires and advanced technology, this raises a sobering question. How long will our own monuments last? Will future generations look back at our skyscrapers as we now look at pyramids, silent, abandoned, mysterious? There is also a lesson here about memory. The pyramids of Sudan are barely known to the wider world. Tourists flock to Egypt, but few know that Sudan has more pyramids than any other place on Earth. History, it seems, is not always fair. It celebrates some civilizations while silencing others. Isn't that true today, too? How many voices, cultures, and traditions are overshadowed by dominant powers? The Kushites remind us to look beyond the obvious, to seek the hidden stories that lie beneath the surface. But perhaps the greatest lesson is about human imagination. Why did the Kushites build pyramids at all? Because they believed death was not an end, but a transformation. They believed stone could be a bridge to eternity, geometry a path to the divine. This is not so different from us. We build rockets to the stars, we construct vast digital networks, we search for immortality in science. Just as the Kushites shaped stone to defy death, we shape technology to defy time. The impulse is the same, to leave a mark that lasts beyond our fragile lives. And here is the paradox. The pyramids of Sudan were meant to preserve memory forever, yet many have crumbled, looted, or forgotten. And yet, their very survival, even in ruin, still inspires awe today. Isn't that a reminder that what we build may not last forever in material form, but its meaning endures? That our search for permanence is in fact a reflection of something eternal within us? On a personal level, these pyramids also ask us, what monuments are we building in our own lives? Not of stone, perhaps, but of choices, relationships, and ideas. Just as the Kushite kings aligned their pyramids with the stars, we align our lives with values, goals, and dreams. The question is not whether we will be remembered forever, but whether the lives we build point towards something meaningful, something greater than ourselves. The pyramids of Sudan also echo a truth about connection. Civilizations rise not in isolation, but in dialogue. Egypt and Kush borrowed, blended, and challenged each other, just as cultures do today. Human history is not a ladder, but a web, threads of exchange, influence, and innovation. In our interconnected world, this is more relevant than ever. The story of the Kushites teaches that no culture is secondary. Every people has wisdom to share. Every tradition has something to teach. And finally, there is a lesson in mystery. Despite decades of excavation, the pyramids of Sudan still hold secrets. The Meroitic language remains largely undeciphered. Countless tombs still lie buried under the sand.
We do not know the full story, and maybe we never will. But is not that part of the magic? Mystery fuels curiosity. It drives exploration. It forces us to ask questions we might otherwise ignore. In the same way, the mysteries in our own lives, our unanswered questions, our struggles, our uncertainties, are not obstacles but invitations to discovery. So the pyramids of Sudan are not just ruins of a lost civilization, they are teachers. They remind us of the resilience of the human spirit, the fragility of empires, the importance of remembering hidden voices, the universality of imagination, and the enduring value of mystery. When we stand before them, we are not only archaeologists of stone, we are archaeologists of ourselves. Beneath the blazing Sudanese sun, the pyramids of Kush rise from the desert like silent guardians of a forgotten world. Their sharp angles cast shadows across the sands, their stones whispering of kings and queens whose names are barely remembered, of dynasties that rivaled Egypt, of dreams of eternity carved into stone. We begin with a question. Are the pyramids of Sudan older than Egypt's? The answer is not simple. Some may be younger. Some may carry echoes of older traditions. But the truth is this: these monuments are not imitations. They are testaments. Testaments to a civilization that refused to be overshadowed, that took an idea and reshaped it into something uniquely its own. The pyramids of Meroë, Nuri, and El-Kurru remind us that human history is not a straight line. It is a tapestry, threads woven together across cultures, across centuries, across landscapes both fertile and barren. The Nile did not belong to Egypt alone. It was the lifeblood of all who lived along its banks. To reduce Nubia and Kush to Egypt's shadow is to erase a chapter of humanity's story. And so the mystery endures. Were the Kushites heirs to Egypt, rivals, or pioneers of a tradition far older than either kingdom? Until the Meroë script is deciphered, until new tombs are unearthed, we may never know the full truth. But perhaps that uncertainty is itself a gift. For every unanswered question pulls us deeper into the wonder of archaeology, the science that allows us to walk among the dead and listen to their whispers. But these pyramids are not only about the past, they are about us. They force us to reflect. What monuments are we building today? What legacies will outlast our fragile empires? What stories will the ruins of our civilization tell when the sands of time sweep over our cities? Human evolution has carried us from stone tools to stone pyramids, from fire to digital firewalls, from local kingdoms to global empires. And yet the questions of the Kushite kings are the same questions we ask today. What happens after death? How do we touch eternity? How do we ensure that our lives, our voices, our civilizations are not swallowed by silence? The pyramids of Sudan are not just relics of lost civilizations. They are reminders that greatness can rise in unexpected places, that history is richer than the stories we are taught, and that the sands of time will one day cover us all. So the next time you think of pyramids, do not think only of Giza. Think of Sudan. Think of the sharp silhouettes rising in the desert, the forgotten kings, the unanswered questions. Think of the mysteries still buried beneath the sand, waiting for someone, perhaps you, to uncover them. And now we leave you with a question. Do we really know everything about our ancestors, or are we only scratching the surface of a much deeper story? If this journey into the mysteries of Sudan has opened your eyes, don't forget to like this video, share it with others who love history, and subscribe to our channel for more explorations into the hidden chapters of prehistory, human evolution, and lost civilizations. Because the past is not silent, it speaks. And if we listen closely, it might just reveal the secrets of who we are and who we might yet become.